A Day in My Wheels from Achieve 3000, Lebanon, Tennessee. There's an old saying, don't judge someone until you've walked a mile in their moccasins. A teenage boy from Tennessee has taken that idea and rolled with it. He's challenging school friends, teachers, and even lawmakers to experience life in a wheelchair during an event he created. It's called Spend a Day in My Wheels. Alex Johnson was born with a rare skeletal disorder that gradually reduced his ability to walk. He got his first wheelchair when he was 7 years old. Although his teachers and classmates have always been supportive, he explains, people don't realize what it's like to actually be in a wheelchair. It is challenging to figure out how to do everything. So when Alex was 11, he devised a way for folks to truly understand the difficulties that mobility device users overcome every day. He arranged to get a bunch of borrowed wheelchairs and then invited his teachers and fellow students to spend a day in them. Until you're actually in a wheelchair, Alex told CBS News, you just don't know. But thanks to Alex, they do now. Dozens of volunteers quickly learned how complicated it is for Alex to get around the school. Getting to classes, really time consuming. Balancing a lunch tray while also rolling down the cafeteria line, super tricky. Dealing with people standing over or reaching around the wheelchair, scary. Those who participated also learned about the aches and pains Alex struggles with daily, which occasionally affects his concentration in class. Wheelchair users have no choice but to sit all day, so they often develop muscle cramps. But that's not the only discomfort they face. There's also the difficult task of rolling a manual wheelchair up and down slopes. Even high school athletes weren't prepared for the endurance required. Just maneuvering around, your arms really get tired, said Tavares Claiborne, a star football player who accepted Alex's challenge. I didn't know it'd be so hard to get through that door. Doors are the worst, they said. That's because they're heavy and difficult to pull open from a rolling chair. And although the Americans with Disabilities Act requires all public buildings in the United States to allow people who use mobility aids to have access to all public areas, that doesn't mean every building has complied. For example, the ADA states that doorways need to be at least 32 inches wide to allow a wheelchair and a person's hands to pass through safely. But many doors in older buildings are just too narrow. It opens our eyes, high school senior Noah Cartwright said after his day in a wheelchair. This world isn't necessarily made for those in wheelchairs, but making the world more accessible for wheelchair users is a public policy issue. It's controlled by government officials, so Alex recently met with his local lawmakers face to face. The eighth grader challenged the Tennessee House of Representatives to spend a day in wheelchairs, and 10 men and women took him up on it. For a full day, they worked at their desk and attended their regular meetings in wheelchairs. The lawmakers had the same eye-opening experiences that Alex's school pals had. State Representative Clark Boyd said, I expected it to be difficult, but I had no idea how frustrating it could be to just simply get around. Thanks to comparable wheelchair challenges around the world, more lawmakers are getting the opportunity to gain a better understanding of what it's like for the millions of people living with a mobility disability. My hope is that through my challenge, we can make the world more accessible, Alex said. Together, we can change the world one challenge at a time.